it's not just one moment. You do it in a lot of steps in the customer journey. So we developed a metric for that. We call it a customer performance score. And basically it says, well, if at all the steps of your journey you make a customer promise, how well do you perform on it? And what is very important, and I think is heavily underestimated, if you do it now, if you really know it's happening now, you can immediately act.
Welcome back to How to Love a Customer, the show where we dive into the wild, wonderful, and sometimes downright weird world of customer experience. I'm Mihail, co-founder and CEO of ChatterMill, and in each episode, I talk to the people behind great brands, the brands who know that customer experience interactions, even the messy ones, are the moments of truth. Our guest today is Casper Overbeek. He's a former chief product and experience officer at a brand I really love, CitizenM. Casper, welcome to How to Love a Customer.
Yes, hi, Miguel. Nice to be here.
Casper, it's so great to have you. Hospitality is one of my favorite industries to look into customer experience-wise. I think people just feel so personal about this. It's a typically like relatively big ticket, and it's usually connected to travel, which is really important to people. So people tend to feel very strongly about this. So, but before we dive into the industry and so on, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you first get into customer experience products, and maybe you can talk a little bit about your journey from digital experience to product roles?
Yes. Well, it has been a journey. I started my career at KLM. I worked there for 14 years, and I landed in customer care. And I didn't really know what that was. But I very quickly found out that I have some kind of passion or something very interesting about how customer value can actually, increase business value. And back in those days, that was not so common yet to think about it. So I developed a vision, we rolled it out. It was the start of social media. It was the start of all kinds of new information layers. Mobile phones were just barely new at that time. So that was very interesting. Then Bol.com came along, and that was a Dutch online retailer. And they were specialized in building a big e-commerce brand. And they were very, very guest-oriented or customer-oriented, but also very functional. And they needed a bit of love. So I had as a mission to reach the hearts of all the Dutch and the Belgians. And in return, I learned a lot about digital and about data. And CitizenM was looking for someone to roll out a membership program or set up a membership program and also manage a digital transformation. And in some peculiar way, this connected, and that became me. Somewhere around Corona, I became their CXO, the Chief Experience, basically in charge of the entire guest experience and everything that supports it. And most of it was digital. And at a certain point, I saw that the digital journey was something that became so dominant. And we were trying to solve complexity by adding new complexity. And I said, well, maybe we should centralize this and really have like one dedicated product domain that is looking at all the digital development. And that's how I ended up to be the chief product officer. And I always had those two hats, like a chief product and a chief customer officer for CitizenM. At CitizenM, when I started, we had 10 hotels. And when I left, we had 38, 39 hotels. And managing that growth was something super inspiring. And and I rounded it off by the sale to Marriott and the transition. Really great journey.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I'm guessing like having this 14-year trajectory in KLM must have been very exciting because I think airlines have changed quite a bit in terms of their approach to customer experience around that time. But maybe just for those of our listeners who haven't had an experience with CitizenM, can you give a little bit of information about this company? I know it's now part of Marriott, but as I understand, like it's still going to be a separate brand. and it has a very distinct approach to hotels, right? So what makes it so different?
Well, it started by the wish to disrupt the hotel industry. And that is, of course, a typical red ocean because I think for thousands of years, people use hotels or lodging. But the idea was like, hey, there is a lot of customer frustrations, waiting in check-in line, paying for Wi-Fi, staff not available when you need it, not being able to find a light switch, and all these kind of things. CitizenM wanted to find a solution for a very specific target audience, and that's important. So it was really for the frequent business traveler back in the days, but we see now that everybody travels for all kind of purposes. And there needs to be some kind of feeling for experience. And I won't call it hipster, but it is a little bit like that. The mantra was affordable luxury. And what does that mean? It means we have relatively small rooms, 14 square meters, but we have a fantastic living room or lobby. There's a lot of art, a lot of nice furniture, and especially a very nice bar with attentive staff where it's 24/7 service. And that whole staffing, that whole authenticity in the way you are being treated is one of the USPs. In the hotel room itself, there's a lot of tech. There is an iPad that you can use. There was an app that you can use for controlling your blinds, your lights, and what have you. And that allowed us to offer a rather affordable alternative in really AAA places. So we are in London. We have 4 hotels. In New York, we have one at Times Square and another one at the Soho location. We are in Los Angeles. We are in Seattle, in Zurich, Geneva. Well, a lot of hotels. And I think that unique, distinct setup that you mentioned, I think it is basically 3 components. Is the design of the hotels is very consistent. You really recognize it. It's the use of smart tech. And it is really, really, really customer friendliness by our frontline staff or ambassadors. That is the one USP that stands out.
Is it fair to say, like, it is very customer friendly, but I guess the business model sort of relies on there being fewer people to serve customers because tech carries a lot of the load, or is that not necessarily a fair characterization?
It's interesting that you say it. Efficiency to, let's say, reduce staff is never an objective. It's actually the opposite. Because, and especially in these digital days, we are a physical product. It is, you travel somewhere and you go to a place and the idea is that you feel at home, or we say your best friend's home. You really are welcome. And that welcome is done through people. And what the people should do, the ambassadors, as we call them, is not doing admin tasks and not looking in computer desks or anything. They need to be there to really welcome the guest. So when you arrive, there is a check-in kiosks. There are no check-in desks. And there is always someone that welcomes you. The level of admin tasks that you need to perform is limited to 1 minute, let's say. But for the rest, the ambassador can really look like, hey, how has your travel been? How do you like it? Is this your first time? Can we do something for you? And I think the point is not in the questions that you ask. It's in reading what people need. So let's say you're a busy man yourself. You have had a full day. You arrive in the hotel and you know that you have like 30 minutes to refresh yourself, and then you need to go to dinner. Then you don't want to have long talks and speeches. You just want to run up to your room and get your shower and do whatever. And if an ambassador is there and he or she can notice that, then that's the service and the treatment that you will get. But now you are at Schiphol at one of the airports, and for the second time in a row, your flight has been canceled, and you need to find a hotel, and you arrive in the hotel. The first thing you want is to let go of all your frustrations. And the second thing you want is a beer at the bar. And then the ambassador can see, hey, this person is in need for a hug or a word of care or something. And that we find very, very, very important. So to answer your question, it's not about the efficiency in the service. It's about the efficiency in everything we do to make the admin task as little as possible. And the last part I would like to say about it is a very lean and mean setup, because there's a lot of autonomy for the ambassadors. So the ambassadors are entirely in charge. Their only KPI is guest satisfaction. And they don't need to ask for permission for anything. And that is also helping, because basically you can just go and be very efficient in that sense. We run the shift with 5 people. So I think that is actually a double win.
And Casper, I'm gonna ask sort of like a little bit tongue-in-cheek question, but why do you think the experience was such an important goal? Like, why, for example, like you mentioned, for ambassadors, guest satisfaction is the only thing they care about, or the only thing they kind of are compensated on, if I understood correctly, right? So why make that the ultimate goal? Like this cynical, challenge we get a lot of times from especially like people from big legacy, maybe in some sense companies, is maybe the importance of customer experience is a little bit overstated, right? Maybe it's not something I cannot very easily tie to the metrics such as revenue, profitability, things like that. Is it just a vision of the founders that was driving this, or was it actually connected to any specific, I don't know, KPIs or sort of like more commercial goals for the company?
I think revenue as a strategy, I don't believe in, because revenue is an outcome of something that you do. And the better you are able to articulate what you do, the better you are able to choose who you do it for, the better you are able to manage your performance. I think the better chance you get in the end to also reach those revenue goals, because of course that is important, and of course there is a cost efficiency goal as well. But I think from the beginning, to pay so much attention to what is the core of your proposition, the choices we made, I always say, well, there was like a white sheet of paper, and there was like what kind of customer journey would you design? What choices do you make? What do you do and what do you not do? So for instance, we are not for families. Families are super welcome. My kids love to go to CitizenM, but we don't have a kids room or any of that. We are also not there for airline crews or for big pharmaceutical congresses or anything, because there are needs that these target audiences have that are very hard to fulfill by the CitizenM hotels. But because you can take all these things out, then suddenly you can focus and become really good at what you do. And authenticity and genuine service has been there from the start. It's even in the way we recruit our staff or frontline staff, but also our support office staff. We have what we call inverted pyramid. So we don't, when we think of hierarchy, there is not like a traditional, like you have the CEO at the top and the rest is below. No. Who is the most important person in the company? That is the guest. Who is second in line? It's the ones that are directly connecting to the guests. So that is the ambassadors, and the rest of the team is just there to support, to make it happen. And I think that in a world where there's so much choice, especially in hotels, where there is like it's of course insane. It's so hard as a very, very small player to distinguish yourself. And I think the fact that we put so much attention on guest satisfaction is the one thing why in the end, it has grown to where it is today.
Interesting. So instead of like maybe, okay, this is not how the strategy was done from revenue to customer experience. It seems like that's the other way around. But does customer experience convert into, revenue profitability in your experience in the hospitality sector? We've had a couple of guests from hospitality before, and for example, one of them talked about how a lot of the business you get these days is from platforms like Booking.com and Expedia and so on, and their rating just plays such a huge role in selection that like even just for that, it was worth it. All the investment, customer experience was worth it. Is that something like you've observed, or?
Yeah, of course. Like the OTAs, the Booking.com, It's two roles. One is a distribution channel, and it's a marketing channel. It is a way to expose your brand. So it's super important. But also there you see, and also TripAdvisor and all the thing. If you look at the guest review ratings that we get, almost always the staff is being mentioned. It's always about the service. So in that sense, there is a direct link between the CX and the way we designed it, and in the end, the revenue. And it goes further because it's maybe not only about revenue, it's also about bottom line. So it's also about efficiency. In our customer strategy, we developed 3 ambitions. We said we want to have human touch or human connection. We want to have convenience and personalization. And that convenience is about how can you make things as simple as possible. And in that simplicity also sits a lot of efficiency for the organization itself. If you can reduce noise, if you can reduce friction, if you can reduce hassle, then it benefits both the guest and the company goals.
So it sounds like, if you execute it right, you get kind of word of mouth growth, or positive sort of brand.
Yeah.
You get more people staying, and actually costs go down.
Yeah, no, and don't forget, it is the experience. So it is what's being sold. So, and in that sense, if I compare it to, for instance, my e-commerce experience, there it was, a capability that you needed to deliver your core product. But here it is the experience. But what I find super interesting about e-commerce, strangely enough, I think the bar of like what good service looks like has increased dramatically because of e-commerce, because everything became super transparent instantly. I even saw that when I came from KLM to Bol, where suddenly, it was always hidden. What are your rights? How do you communicate? How do I know when my flight is going eventually? Anything? You were sort of surrendered to, whatever the airline was telling you. And then suddenly you bought something online, and now you can instantly see, you can even see when the delivery guy is going to knock on your door. That transparency has influenced hugely how consumer and guest expectations have developed. Because I don't want to wait. I don't want to hear like we don't know. I just want it to be solved. And I want to have someone nice to welcome me. And I think that is, and also in this day and age of where AI and everything is taking over, it's going to become even more important. So I have absolutely no worry about the future of CX being overwhelmed by other motives. I think it actually will become stronger.
No, I completely agree. I think one of these theories I have is that these days every purchase is an experience. Like every industry is an experience industry, and that is kind of why hospitality is so interesting, because they have been, I think, at the forefront of this.
It's very interesting that you say that, because now I'm like I'm in a bit of a intermediate period, and I use it to talk to a lot of other industries, because one of the things, if you're so dedicated to a company like me for 7.5 years at CitizenM, you're outside in, like really looking around what's going on. It sort of is, it didn't get the attention it needed. So now I'm all over the place looking at all kinds of industries, from healthcare to HR tech to all kinds of other things. And you see the similarities in what are needed. Can you understand customer needs? Can you find out what is really driving their behavior? What are the choices that you make in your strategy, in your product, in your proposition? It is exactly like you say. It's every industry has become an experience.
Fantastic, Casper. Well, that's such a great look into the industry. And maybe now let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the story you bring us today. And I know you actually bring us maybe a couple. So we'll start with one and then see how things progress. So tell us a little bit about the story, and then what happened and what made it something that you'll never forget.
Well, I'll start actually with one that's not so much about the guest, but more about the employees, because it shows how it can really enforce each other. So we built a guest app. And that guest app allowed you to do a lot of stuff. So basically, a guest could control their entire guest journey through the digital app. But then we found out that the frontline staff, the ambassadors that I was talking about, they were very often left in the blight, or they were still was still left over with a lot of stuff that they needed to care of. And then we had kiosks, very lean and mean, but then a big screen because of all the systems that they needed to access to. So we said, well, we also need to do something for these employees, for the ambassadors. So we developed an ambassador app. It was called Mamba. And in the support office, we were thinking about all kinds of features that we wanted to have, and then we rolled it out, and we said, "Hey, dear ambassador, we got something great for you. Here it's the Mamba app," and no one used it. So that was a little bit of a problem. And then we said, okay, apparently they are not ready for it or anything, so we took it off again, and we brought it back. But then it was like, yeah. It cannot be. I mean, it needs to work. And then we did something very smart. We started talking to the ambassadors first. I think in any CX textbook that you can read since maybe end of the 80s, this is the first lesson that you get. And well, we didn't organize that properly enough. And then they said, well, you know what really helped? There is this iPad in the room. And the iPad is being used to control everything. As I said, lights, screens, temperature, your casting. So if the iPad is not working, basically your room, you have a problem. And very often, if it is not working, it could be solved by just restarting it. But every time the ambassador needed to go up, then, well, this happens to me. I'm in the room. My iPad is not working. What do? I grab the phone. There's still always a phone in the room. And I say, hey, my iPad is not working. Okay, I come up and I'll see if I can organize it and solve it for you. 9 out of 10 times, it could be solved by restarting it. So the ambassador said, what would really help is if you would allow us to do this remotely. Because, then I need to go up and just to push a few buttons and I go down again. In addition, this is also waiting time and frustration for guests. Because if you call and someone says, I come up, then you never know, when is this person coming up? Is it 1 minute? Is it 10 minutes? Is it half an hour? So also there, reducing that waiting and the frustration, have an instant solution really helped. And when we launched this feature, immediately we saw the use of this Mamba app increasing dramatically. It went from practically 0 to 60-70% of all ambassadors that use it. And then we said, well, what other things are there? Well, one of the things, we had some digital ordering of food, and then they ambassadors, and then we have simple food offering. But when people come back from going out late, they like pizza. But the pizza is always popular, so we're out of pizza. So then they said, well, we would like to have pizza. And pizza is no longer there. And this, having to say no doesn't feel good, especially if it happens almost like every night. So then I said, can we not use, with Mamba, can we not control directly the inventory of what is still there, of what is sold out in the guest app, because it would help. So that was the second thing we solved. And this is how we rolled out a lot of things. Like another thing was like if some guest would call and it would say, well, my the buttons on the iPad are not working because I tried to get the temperature down, but it's not getting any colder. Is it then a problem of the tech, or is the airco down? Well, this was then, we also organized a way to triage that. And by doing this, we really solved a lot of customer frustrations, because the ambassador was empowered to just focus on solving it on the spot. So this is something, and the hard lesson was indeed that we first put it live, and we forgot to listen to the end user.
And I think it's such an interesting story, because even though what we're talking here about is kind of voice of the employee, the I guess impact is really on the customer experience,
Exactly.
very, very directly, right? So So can you talk about a little bit about like what was the impact of all these changes? What did you see on the end?
Well, yeah, it brings me actually to another example. So, and that is the role of guest feedback in our let's say our development ecosystem or digital ecosystem. So what we do is we have what we call small feedback loops, and in our digital journey, there were moments where you would get the question like, "How do you like? How easy was it to check in? How easy was it to make it a booking? How easy was payment or anything?" So like a lot of moments, and it's always possible to just say 1 to 5 stars, very easy. That's it. But you could also um, add text to it, and like open comments, and people do that a lot. So we would get a lot of feedback, and that feedback it would go one step further because all that feedback would go directly into a Slack channel, and anyone in CitizenM and now another star can sort of become member of the channel. So you get feedback on how the performance is. And that really helps to iterate it. And so in this example, what I just mentioned, we really saw it going down. We never saw complaints about the iPad working anymore. Well, sometimes the iPad was not working because of other reasons, but we really saw it dramatically going down. And this was also a very interesting case because it also showed what is the power of customer feedback if you really, really use it. Because you get information that you don't get by looking at dashboards, and you feel proximity to what's going on in the operation.
Well, that's yeah, obviously music to my ears as a founder of Chattermode that you can't get everything from those dashboards. But can you talk a little bit about like maybe some examples, like if you can, of like what kind of things like you can get from there, but you can't get from sort of dashboards? Because yeah, a lot of people, especially more technical people, they kind of think like, oh, we can measure everything these days. So like, why do we need these sort of channels?
Well, this was about the app. You can also, let's say, a booking journey example. Then was a big campaign would go live, and then of course, there's like I don't know. We have a new location. We go to Austin, and then we want everyone to visit our website to see how cool Austin is, and then we would like them to book. And then you see, and then you, of course, you do a little bit of A/B testing, everything, but you see like hiccups that you cannot explain. And that's where this feedback really helped, because then it turned out that buttons were not visible enough, or that people were confused by the imagery that we used, or these kind of things. So having that qualitative content really helped. And the other part is that it's not just one moment. You do it in a lot of steps in the customer journey. So we developed a metric for that. We call it a customer performance score. And basically it says, well, if at all the steps of your journey you make a customer promise, how well do you perform on it? But in order to make that not just an average number that doesn't tell you anything, you need to get more substance. And that substance was done by these little moments and all the additional customer feedback that we would get. And what is very important, and I think is heavily underestimated, if you do it now, if you really know it's happening now, you can immediately act. And if you have like a very operational driven team, or whole hotel operation is operationally driven, it would come up that like we would see it and immediately someone would go up to see if we could solve it. And like there's like a water leakage or anything. Yeah, and that kind of dynamic is fantastic. It's absolutely inspiring to see that, because it really makes you feel like we're on this as a team. We're creating this guest experience, and we are not doing this looking a month back. No, it happens now.
I love this. And I think what's really interesting about this example, and we've seen this with a lot of our hospitality clients, is you don't even necessarily, like, sometimes people think like you need to create all these like motivation sort of compensation schemes, especially based on kind of like scores and all that stuff. And in my experience, like it turns out like if you give people like let's say the ambassadors in your case, or sometimes like managers of properties in others, just access to customer feedback. And I guess you hire the right people, which sort of comes as a given. Then they are intrinsically motivated to fix the problem, even if you don't necessarily have like specific targets around that. Just because like what people typically miss is that they don't know what the problem is. But as soon as you kind of have that stream of feedback that is relevant to their domain, then it's actually it's actually something you see naturally.
One of the things that I learned while we were scaling, you need to do some engineering. It is. When I look at CX, I always like to look at consistency and coherence. So consistency is about that every time you roughly get what you expect, that there are not too many surprises in it, unless nice ones, but that there is a consistency in your service offering. And the coherence is that it connects to the journey steps, that it's like intuitive, that it connects to each other. And especially where digital and physical merge, or where it's like a handover, that's where it's usually quite complex. And that requires a little bit of thinking on how you offer that in the best way. And I'll give you an example about the kiosks that we have for check-in, or that CitizenM has for check-in. What you very often see, other hotels or hospitals that use kiosks, they have kiosks and they have a desk. Because what if the kiosk doesn't work? Then you need a desk. So what is then the default is that people, they look at the kiosk and they think, the desk is free, I'd rather go to the desk. So one person is standing in front of the desk. Then the next person comes in and saying, hey, I see someone there. I'm going to stand and wait till that person is. And before you know it, you have a queue and no one is using the kiosk. And that kind of thinking, and it also takes a little bit of courage. Then you say, well, we are just going to be kiosk, nothing else. You can also, how should I say, engineer and force a little bit of consumer and guest behavior in order to, to give that experience.
And how do you then, I'm just curious because I've been in this situation myself. So I'm one of the people who actually would queue towards a kiosk. So if I have a chance not to talk to a person, I would probably take it.
Okay.
But then occasionally you are in a situation where something doesn't work in those kiosks, right? And then you do want a human as a fallback. So how do you solve that problem?
I think there's actually two answers to it. So one is that how we used to do it, but also one is like how it's going to be, because I think kiosks are going to be at a certain point outdated again, and then you want everything happening before. And I think then to have like an intuitive conversational digital experience even before you get into the hotel, everything is sorted. And then the question is, what does a warm welcome look like if there's nothing you need to do? So in your case, your problems have all been solved. And then you can also think about proactive check-in. Why would you need to check in anyway? I think it's except for getting a room key. And there I think that if you can design and be very articulate about what a warm welcome looks like, what a signature arrival experience in your hotel looks like, how you would like a guest to feel when they arrive, and you can have, and then it becomes very soft. It is in the end also a soft business. And if you know how to execute that well, and you know that how to sort of, pay attention also to needs. Like, if you are like in a New York hotel, you're a Dutch company, you're in a New York hotel, what happens? People, they check out and they leave at the end of the night on their planes back home. So what always happens is a lot of luggage. And they all check out at the same time. So you have a lot of luggage. If you have someone running around with luggage up and down, then you cannot provide the warm welcome that you would guests like to experience. So in peak times, and you know exactly when they are because it's always the same, you need to find out a solution for that. Or you say, well, we would like guests that check out, allow them some kind of self-service options, because that allows us to still pay attention to this warm welcome. And I think that combination, I think it's not a tech challenge. I think it's actually a human challenge.
It wouldn't be an episode of how to help a customer these days without a question about AI. Do you think there is a role for AI kind of to bridge that gap a little bit, or it actually has to be a human?
Well, if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have said
No way in hell.
no. Because at that time I didn't believe that AI could be empathic, and I think empathy is it's a
Hugely important.
key driver of any successful customer experience. But what I see, the speed of development, but also the ease of the acceptance by consumers, it's going to change. So I'm involved and I'm helping a startup. It's called Roam.ai with customer service telephone calls. And basically, they pick up the phone for a hotel. I never thought it would work, and I would never support it if I would think, we are going to deteriorate the customer experience. But then I learned that 40% of all hotel telephone calls are not being answered at all. And when you are being answered, very often it's after you've been very long waiting times. Well, is that the customer service, the level that you would like to offer your guests? Or would you say, well, hey, here is an alternative that really works well, and it's always 24/7, always on, any language, and it understands my needs? I think that is the way forward. But then still, when something is happening, when something serious is happening, you want to have that human in the loop, as we call it. And I think that is key as well. Hey, and there you are again, because now again, it's about where do digital and human meet. I find that a fascinating domain, and it's constantly, it's always the same questions that are happening there. So yes, AI will help. But I don't think it will replace the physical part, but I think it will replace any supporting efforts that might be there.
Awesome, Casper. Well, that's been such a fascinating conversation, but I know we're a little bit pressed on time. So how about we switch to our very exciting customer experience hot take round? So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You can answer with something short or talk at length. We love controversial answers here. We also love any kind of answers, to be honest. But yeah, just go with your gut. So first one is, what is a customer experience trend or buzzword you wish we'd retire?
That's a good question. It is many. What I would wish to retire, because I'm really a big fan of customer journeys, but customer journey without thinking about what backend is there, I believe it's like just putting a number of post-its on the wall without thinking any further. There's no value in that, and I see that happening. And hey, then we're done. We tick the box. But for me, a customer journey map is just a start.
So if it is just a start, like what kind of follow-up do you expect from that? Do you think is necessary to make it worth it?
Well, I very often say, well, if you want to make things look simple for a guest, very often there's a complexity behind to make it possible. And that complexity is like the example that I gave about the Mamba app. This is about interaction between guests and employees. But there is also supporting backend, a data infrastructure. There is all kinds of systems that play a role. And I think if you have no notion of how that relates, then you will also not be able to succeed in optimizing or making improvements on your customer journey because you simply don't understand the system. So for me, it's not a customer journey mapping. It's like a customer journey system that you need to be aware of.
Awesome. That's super interesting. What brand outside of CitizenM, of course, do you think is killing it in customer experience? Like, who are your inspirations?
I think Patagonia. Because it's super hard when you are growing to stay authentic and to stay close to your beliefs. And I'm here advocating customer experience, and I'm telling all the cool things that CitizenM is doing. But there's also a reality of pressure on a lot of things and things that don't go right and revenue that is not where we want it to be or costs that are too high. And that is the moment that leadership needs to say, well, these are the key principles that we hold on to no matter what. And for me, Patagonia is one of the examples of doing that really well and not letting go of these core principles and still managing to grow. And I find that, really inspiring to follow.
But it's interesting that, like, you essentially, and I'm not disagreeing at all. I completely agree. But it's not what people would maybe like traditionally call customer experience, right? In a sense that, it's these values behind it, right? But they're like maybe in some sense actually like limiting the customer experience options they can provide.
That's true. It's about choices. But I can also use a very small example. It's like the gratitude shop. It's a coffee shop right next door to my house. And I don't know what it is about coffee, but in the Netherlands there's a zillion coffee shops now. But I love gratitude. It already starts with the name, gratitude. How wonderful is that? Just to be grateful. And then I spoke to the guy, and he's pretty successful. And he said, and I said, "Are you considering opening extra days?" And he said, "No, I'm going to go back. Actually, I'm going to be only working from Tuesday to Saturday." And I said, "Hey, why?" And he said, "Well, I can't take it anymore, and I really want to deliver, this authenticity, this extra piece of next to the coffee, and I see that I have no space, and I need to do all kinds of other things. So I rather limit it and do it right than sort of do more and in the end lose it." So it's like you rightfully say, like limiting options is sometimes very good for brands.
I think it's about knowing who your customer is. I think like a typical Starbucks customer would listen to that and think, "Oh, this is horrible." But there is maybe a small, maybe actually a pretty big cohort of people who actually value these things like integrity in a brand. So things Patagonia stands for, things that gratitude sounds like stands for, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And Casper, like looking at the hospitality industry writ large, again, not just CitizenM, but or maybe not CitizenM, but everyone else. So what do you think like the industry still gets wrong about customer experience?
Car rental.
What about it? I'm very intrigued.
For me, like renting a car, it's such a hassle, and I completely don't understand why. I honestly don't. So you fill out all your stuff online. First of all, like even finding some car, everybody says we're cheap, and they're not cheap. And I find that a fake promise. Then you fill out everything online. Then you arrive. You need to fill it out all again. And I thought, oh yeah, but this was my experience from a couple of years back. That's no longer the case. Well, it is the case because it happened to me right before Christmas. The fact that you need to pay for a second driver, why would you need to pay for that? Everybody has a driver's license. All these kind of things. The fact that there is like all these upselling efforts. I find this, I find it like there are so many broken experience in that journey. I would love to do that right. And I don't know the business well enough, so I'm not saying anything about. I'm sure there's things I overlook. I really talk from a customer experience point.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I completely agree. It's one of those industries where every time I have an interaction, something bad is happening. There is no car that you booked online. It's not there. Last time we were just talking about skiing before we started. So I ordered a car with a ski rack. Specifically said there will be a ski rack. I arrived with my big bag of skis and there is no ski rack available. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And every challenger to the space that we've seen over the years has kind of failed as well, which is really strange. I don't fully understand it myself. Awesome, Casper. We are right on time, so I think we've covered so much interesting stuff. There's a lot of really good lessons for people to pick up. I'm gonna follow where you land next very excitedly, and maybe we'll talk in a couple of years about the new industry. Yeah, thanks so much for being here and sharing your insights. To all of our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode of How to Help a Customer, please subscribe, tell a friend, and join us next time for more stories that show the power of listening to your customers.